Hi there. This subject of this lecture is how to make a animation out of a SketchUp model. And SketchUp takes advantage of saved scenes in your project to create an animation. And in fact, when you switch from scene to scene, the speed at which it jumps from one scene to the next is actually determined by the animation settings. See how it slowly moves from one scene to the next? Well, that is under the animation settings. If you go to the View pull-down menu, find Animation. On a PC, the Animation menu is slightly lower there in the list, but either way, that's where you'll find the Settings menu for animations. And the big thing with animations is you can enable transitions, which means that with that enabled, from one scene to the next, it will take whatever time frame you specify. If you disable that, and I'll just disable that right here, it should jump from scene to scene rather quickly. And this is nice when you're working on a model and you want to be able to quickly see what's going on. But of course, when you're ready to make an animation, you'll want to go and change that to be somewhat slower. Now, I personally prefer enabling scene transitions and have it nice and slow. Maybe I'll make it 4 seconds. And I don't like to have a delay time. Now let me show you what a delay time looks like. I'll have it delay for 2 seconds on each scene, and then it'll transition for 2 seconds into the next scene. And what you'll see, if I were to play this animation, and to play the animation just live, you can just go back to that animation tool grouping and choose play. What you'll see is it will pause on each scene and then take about 2 seconds to jump to the next scene. Now, I don't like that pausing. I like essentially smooth action. So what I do is I go and under the settings, I get rid of that scene delay. I make it 0. Some people like the pause. I don't know. I guess it's just a matter of taste. But anyway, the other thing that I don't like is you see how the section planes are visible? Now, that is one of the many features that are controlled in SketchUp's styles. And right now, if you go and you look at these different scenes, they all have this one style applied to them. There's so many different ones. Some of them actually have section cuts on. And what you can do with styles is you can control the visibility of the section planes and of what the section looks like. For example, if I'm going over here, I'll select the only style in this model. It's the one that's applied to all the scenes. Choose Edit. First of all, I can turn off the section planes. That's the graphical representation of the section cuts. I'll leave the section cuts on, but maybe I'll turn off the model axes and any guides because I don't really want those to show up in my movie. Now, when I make a change to the style, you'll see the You Should Update Me button. If you don't click this, it will not update. So you have to remember to click that. That's kind of the, I think SketchUp calls it the recycle button. The other fun thing you can do, if you are so inclined, is you can change the color of the section cuts. I think sepia is one of my favorite colors. There we go. And you can even change the width of that section cut. And here I'll make it extra dramatic because this is such a big building section. You see how the lines get significantly darker as you change that cut. Let's see how dark we can make them. They get a little bit darker. That can get a little overboard with that. Anyway, that particular feature only affects the scene at hand. And there's a number of other features that you can turn on and off. There's watermarks that you could have. You could change the style. You could turn on and off sky. Right now there is no sky or background color. Well, the background color is white. And you can also add in things like depth cues and extension lines and sketchy lines. When you do that, click the Update button. It will affect all scenes where that style is applied. So, although in this case, I think I'll go with a cleaner look to my model. Now, once you've got the views set up, and the way you set up an animation is you set up a series of sequential scenes that kind of walk through your project. Now, I do believe that the walkthrough can get a little bit much. You kind of end up with a sort of swimming effect where you are moving too much through the space. So sometimes it's nice just to move, sort of swivel the camera left and right. And I use a number of the view tools, but the look around tool is one of my favorites. The walk tool is also a good one and allows you to sort of move slowly through the space. Nothing is worse than a walkthrough, which is more like a run through. Anyway, each of these scenes will be part of the animation, so you have to think, do you want them all in there? I think I might leave out this front section cut view here. Now, the way that you leave that out, you call up the Scenes menu and find the scene that you want to either include or exclude. This one right here is the one I want to exclude. If I uncheck the box, Include in Animation, that excludes it. And now what you'll see up here in my list of scenes, it still is available. I can click on it to go to it, but it will leave it out of the animation. Anyway, once you have all that set up, you have your scene transitions enabled and a timing setup that you like. Really, the only way to see what this animation is going to look like is to export it. So you have to go to the Export Animation menu. And this is really, you can try playing it on your computer, but it never quite looks the same as when you export the animation. Now, when you do this, first of all, you're going to want to choose a video format that makes sense for your computer. I believe that Macs typically are MP4, but AVI works very well on PCs. So if you know you're going to be sending it to a PC, that's perfectly fine, and that should play on a Mac as well. There are a number of options here down in this Save menu. The biggest thing is choosing, do you want to have just a regular full HD video, or do you want to set up some custom size? The big thing is previewing this frame size so that you can see exactly what the movie is going to look like. Now, it's probably going to look like more or less what your screen looks like. Anyway, there's a number of other options here. The frame rate is how fast the movie plays. The higher the frame rate, the smoother the action. So you can choose something like a cinematic style frame rate. That's going to be pretty smooth, and it's going to play very nicely on the computer. If you opt for a custom size, you can make it much higher resolution, up to 4,000 pixels, but probably that's a little bit much for most people. Now, the only other thing is you can choose to anti-alias or not. That will make jagged lines that look at an angle to be jagged. That will smooth them out. Looping to the starting scene is great if you know that your animation is going to play at like a kiosk or something like that. I tend to leave that off. And then the transparent background, any view outside a window will end up being transparent. This is nice if you have some kind of post-processing that you want to do to add in images. I usually leave that out. Anyway, when you click OK, browse to find a place for this wonderful creation, and obviously call it something that makes sense, like animation, and click Export. And what will happen, it will give you an estimate of about how long it should take to export the animation. So we will tune back in about 3 minutes. All right, so the animation is done, and here it is playing on my computer. And what you'll see is that it should move seamlessly from scene to scene. It's a little fast for my taste. I think I'd slow it down. What you will also see is that section planes work very nicely in animations. In fact, some animations, all you need is 2 scenes with a section plane on in one and off in the other, and you can really create some interesting cutaway views of your project. Anyway, and that is basically how you set up an animation in SketchUp. And if you want to do a photorealistically rendered animation, by all means, you can do that. Once you activate LightUp, which is the rendering engine that we are using here, if you do a full bake on LightUp, which is to say not an incremental render, but a full-on render everything, you can then export the saved scenes that you have as an animation, just as you do here. Just use the LightUp capture menu to do that. And that is it.